this topic we will try to understand about how to write the answer about that question, right. So, this question asked by UPSC in 22, and this question is related with economic anthropology, right. Economic anthropology, and these are the two important approaches for the study of economic anthropology, right. First approach, that is formalist, right, and second approach, that is substantivist, right. So, main propounder of that approach were Raymond Firth. Here you have to remember about the name of Raymond Firth. He was great formalist economic anthropologist, and here you have to remember the name of Karl Polanyi, and he was the great substantivist anthropologist. And Raymond Firth was supported by M.G. Herskovich. He supported the approach of Raymond Firth. So, basically that formalist were influenced by concept of formal economics, right. And that concept means Raymond Firth proposed that concept on the basis of some important concept related to formal economics. So, before we are going to study about a concept of formal economics, you have remembered some important thing related to the work of Raymond Firth. He wrote a book named First Primitive Polynesian Economy, right. Primitive Polynesian Economy, that was written by Raymond Firth. And second, the primitive economy of New Zealand Maoris, right. That was written by Raymond Firth in 1929, and in this two important work, by these two important work, Raymond Firth proposed his concept related to formal economics, related to formalist view. So, what Raymond Firth said in that concept, that approach, what was the assumption of Raymond Firth? Here you have to remember. So, first important thing here, Raymond Firth said that all economic systems are fundamentally similar. Try to understand what he want to say. He want to say that all economic systems are today fundamentally similar. Second, he said that all people acts for maximization of their profit. And third important approach towards that, he said that all people have influenced by similar psychological factor. They want to maximize their interest, and therefore all people have rational strategy for their economic production, consumption and distribution. So, these are the four important assumptions given by Raymond Firth. So, assumption provided by Raymond Firth, that was supported by M.G. Herskovich through his famous work, the economic life of primitive people in 1914, right? But Karl Polanyi, he wrote a book named Trade and Market in Early Empire, right, in 1953. That was very important book written by Karl Polanyi, and Karl Polanyi rejected that idea because Karl Polanyi said that there are fundamental differences between economic perspective or economic activity of primitive people and modern capitalist economic system. So, Karl Polanyi said that there are fundamental differences between primitive economy and modern capitalist economy. Second, he said that there are differences towards the approach for economic production, consumption, distribution and exchange from the people of primitive society and from the people of modern capitalist society, because people who belongs from primitive society, they are not influenced by the process of maximization of profit, by the attitude towards the economic activity for the maximization of their interest. Primitive people influenced by the fulfillment of the need of their community, not for the maximization of their profit. Second, there are different psychology towards economic production from the people of primitive society and from the people of modern capitalist society, and therefore both have different strategy towards economic production, consumption, distribution and exchange. So, because primitive society, here Karl Polanyi said that if we want to understand about primitive economy, so primitive economy is quite different from modern economy, because primitive economy is subsistence economy, primitive economy is non-monetary economy. In primitive economic system, production, consumption, distribution and exchange are influenced by the concept of reciprocity and redistribution. So, there are fundamental differences between modern economic system and primitive economic system. Second, you have to remember about some important approach of formalist, right, and substantivist. So, because formalist influenced by formal economics, right, they were influenced by formal economics. So, they believe that theory perspective of formal economics, like theory of demand and supply, right, theory of demand and supply. Second, theory of scarcity of resources, and theory of maximization of profit, and role of market, right. So, these are the four important approach, method, perspective of formal economics. They said that concepts are useful for the study of both primitive as well as modern economic system, right, because they were influenced by the concept of formal economic system. Earlier I have said that because they believe that all economic systems are fundamentally equal and all people equally influenced by the concept of maximization of profit towards their economic activity. So they said that important theories from formal economics, these theories are useful for the study of both primitive as well as modern economic system. But the substantivist rejected that. He said that there is no scope of application of theory of demand and supply for the understanding of primitive economic system. Why? Because substantivists, they were anthropologists, and they were the anthropologists who believed that if you want to understand about primitive economic system, we should understand primitive economic system in the relations with their social and cultural system, because they believe that economic activity is the part of socio-cultural system. Economic activity influenced, regulated by their socio-cultural system. So society, their social institution, their cultural institution, their psychology, their religion, all things influence to their economic activity. So people who belongs from primitive society, here you have to understand people who belongs from primitive society, they were not influenced by the concept of theory and demand and supply, because their economy is non-monetary economy. Their economy is subsistence economy, and in their economy the rule of reciprocity and redistribution are very important, right? That the concept is very important for their production, consumption, distribution and exchange. And they are the people who belongs from primitive society, they have been not doing their economic activity for maximization of their profit. They do not want to maximize their profit, they want to survive their community. They do not want to sell their product in market. They are producing something for the fulfillment of the need of their society. They are not producing something for sale and purchase in market. So here the role of theory of demand and supply are very limited. Second, when Raymond Firth and formalist anthropologists said that the theory of concept of scarcity of resources is applied for both the primitive as well as modern economic system. But he said that in primitive economic system, there was no scarcity of resources. They have surplus resources, because there are many hunter food gatherer society, right? Hunter food gatherer, they live in a forest, right? So they have much resources for their survival, and therefore some anthropologists propose a very important concept related to hunter food gatherer society. They are the real affluent society, right? Real affluent society. So he said that their need is limited and resources are surplus, so they have not need to apply theory of scarcity of resources and choice, right? Third important thing, theory of maximization of profit. So it has no any application for the understanding of primitive economic system, because primitive people produce something for the fulfillment of the need of their society, and because they are the people who live outside the market, So here the role of market is very limited, and if market present in primitive society, so their market is the part of their socio-cultural system. And if we want to understand about the role of market in primitive society, so the role of market in primitive society is quite different from in modern capitalist society, right? So they have different approach towards say economic system, but here you have to remember about an important thing related to method. Method also, if you try to understand how that both approaches are quite different from each other, so he apply mathematical method or statistical method and their data, the nature of their data is quantitative, right? Means they depend on quantitative data for study of primitive and modern economic system. But substantivist anthropologist has given focus about participant observation, that is a anthropological method for the study of primitive society, participant observation method, and the nature of their data is both quantitative plus qualitative, right? So both have quite different approach, both utilize different method for the understanding of primitive economic system. But you have to remember an important case study in the favor of formalist. That case study was done by Soltx. He was the great American anthropologist, and he did case study in Guatemalan Indian society. And Guatemalan Indian society was at the stage of hunter food gathering. But when Soltx did his research in Guatemalan Indian society, he found that their economy is primitive, but they apply those theory and perspective which apply in modern capitalist society. So even Guatemalan society, people from Guatemalan Indian society, they were primitive people, but they were familiar with the concept of theory of demand and supply, theory of scarcity of resources, theory of maximization of profit, and they also understood about the role of market for their economic production, consumption, distribution and exchange. So Soltx found that the concept of capitalist economic system imply in primitive economic system also. Hence he wrote a very famous book, Penny Capitalism, a study in Guatemalan Indian society, right? And on the basis of that study, Soltx proved that theory, perspective and method of formal economics are useful for the study of both primitive as well as modern economic system. But here, if you want to write a case study, that was done by L.P. Vidyarthi. He did research in Maler Hill tribe of Jharkhand, and he wrote a very famous book, The Maler, a study in nature man spirit complex. And on the basis of that research, he proposed a very important theory, nature man spirit complex. And through that he proposed that if you want to understand about economic life of primitive society, we can't understand economic life of primitive people without understanding of their socio-cultural system. So, LP Vidyarthi, he rejected the idea about formal economist, their ideas will useful for the understanding of primitive economy. So, therefore, both have two different approaches towards economic anthropology, and both have quite different approaches. But recently some anthropologists found that in the course of globalization, here if you want to write conclusion, so in the course of globalization, both primitive as well as modern economic systems are integrating with each other, and therefore both approaches are useful for the understanding of economic activity of the people of primitive as well as modern society, and therefore both are fruitful for the understanding of economic anthropology, and both have expanding the scope of economic anthropology. So, through that you can write your conclusion. So, this is answer format for formalist and substantivist debate.